Hey, welcome to this review of Tiny Epic Zombies. This is my first foray into the Tiny Epic games. I kickstarted this one and I got the deluxe version, so it had some extra stuff. I did an unboxing for it. But anyway, it is a zombie horde game where you have objectives and you go out and you kill zombies and you run around and you try not to die, like, a theme that we've seen a lot of. This is for 1 to 5 players, but to have 5 players, one of them has to be the zombies. And they run it and they manage the hands. For cooperative you can only go up to 4, but of course I got it mostly for single player, and in this case I got it because it's small and I wanted to see if it would work in the RV. So anyway, what we'll do is we'll go over the artwork, the rule book, a quick setup, a quick half a turn kind of demo, and then my final thoughts. So without further ado, let's take a look at the rule book. Okay, so the rule book, being Tiny Epic, is tiny, but to be frank, it's actually really good. It's only about 16, 17, oh wait a minute, well 19 pages if you include the glossary, but not a whole lot on each page. It does a very good job of going through the setup. It gives you a diagram, and what I really like is the way that they have letters associated with each of the steps. And then it's on the diagram that tells you where to put it. Setup is relatively easy. The explanations of the turns are very good, and then it gives very short explanation of the extra player modes, cooperative mode without a zombie master, single player, and a competitive mode. So it's actually pretty decent. The only downside, or the big negative I have, is because it's so small, some of the diagrams are tough to see when you actually look at them, but that's why it's nice that it had the big A, or B, C, D, 1s and 2s on the diagrams. But yeah, overall I think it takes about 5 or 10 minutes to read and you can be up and play, and take you longer to set up than to read the rule book. But very impressed with the rule book, really like the artwork as well. Don't know if you can see it, but the box actually has that reflective, I forget what they call it, where it shines. It's almost embossed, but not quite. And it's kind of cartoony zombie. It's almost, Little Shop of Horrors kind of cartoony violence. And then, as you can see, they actually went the extra step of putting a picture in the box. But we'll take a look here at some of the actual components, and then we'll get on to setting up a game. Alright, so let's check out some of the components. Like I said, the rulebook is pretty good. The print is okay, easily readable for, with the regular text, but when you get down into some of the really small stuff like the charts, can get a little small, but like I said, it's got a nice setup section, and it really does tell you everything you need to know. There are 3 kinds of big cards. You have your objective cards, and they're standard card stock. I will get some card protectors, I've decided. Not too shiny. They do have a little bit of reflection, and they have that little grid pattern that you have, but the feel is okay. They're not super sticky, but they're sticky enough that you can hang on to them. Then you also have your cards for your survivalists, your heroes, and if you flip on the back side, they're zombies. And each of the zombies have a passive ability. And they have these horde things that when you're playing competitive and when there's a zombie player running it, they use those. And then you have your double-sided room cards. You pull these out randomly. So they each have an entryway, rooms 1, 2, and 3, and that's the order that you have to put the zombies in. You put a zombie in there, then there, then there, and if these are 3 filled, then they start going into and tearing down the barricades. And then like I said, they're 2-sided. And then this one here is your cooperative courtyard, and the other side is competitive. But you have your barricade track. You have your cooperative courtyard where you put your little extra survivors, and then when you end here you can heal. So everything sort of starts and finishes there. The actual cards, you got the cards, again, they're not slick, but they're not super sticky, so you can actually use them pretty well. There are different types of cards. You have your pickup items, which are your radios. You have your weapons, which you put on your meeples. Events, something blows up, or you get a zombie. So what do we got? Pickups, weapons, events, and then the backpack items, which are really just sort of other pickups. The actual meeples, they're plastic. They're really the only plastic component. And then, I showed them before, but they come with little pegs. So if he's carrying the axe, he can carry the axe. But he could also, if he's carrying the machine gun too, he can, I guess you can stick that on your back. So, it's just kind of gimmicky. You don't really need them, but they're kind of neat and kind of fun. Probably fun for the kids. You have your dice. Wooden vehicles that actually play, and you get to drive around in them. They actually just give you extra turns, but kind of neat. Remind me of kids' toys. All these components are wood. So you have your little zombies, your health meters, and then your bullets. You have 4 of each of those. 18 total zombies. And then just these are your little survivors, and then just cubes that you need to track stuff, and then your little components. Fairly thick cardboard, not so not horribly thick, but screen printed okay. I didn't have any that were off, and then they're two-sided. They have the gray side for before you use them, after you use them, that sort of thing, depending on what they are. Some are traps, some are radios, some are doorway things. Just they all have different purposes. And then this all fits in this one box, which like I said before, is 7 by 4.5 by 1.5. But when you lay it all out, it's a good bit bigger. 2.5 by 1.5 feet is what it turned out for me. So those are all the components of the box. They're nice, they're small, and they all fit in a little tiny box. Moving on to the setup. Hey, before I move on to the setup, let me just put these back in here to show you. It really does all fit in here pretty simply. And there's even room for my freebie pack of the deluxe stuff. And there you go, all right there. So tiny, yep, qualifies. So here's the game all set up and ready to play. And the setup, as I said, is very well done in the rule book. So basically the first thing you do is you take your 9 cards, you put your courtyard in the middle, the other 8 randomly spaced around, you just draw them out randomly, and then you set up all the things that go in them. So for a 1-player game you have 2 of the meeples, you have 2 of your extra survivors, and your barricade starts on a 2. You put a zombie in each of the number 1 rooms, and then you put whatever vehicle, this happens to be the motorcycle side, came up. So you put the motorcycle in there, and that is really all you put in there except for supply crate, some traps that you can set. Then what you do is you get your cards together. So you'll have 2 decks, a supply deck and a search deck. Now the kinds of cards that you have are weapons cards, event cards, backpack cards, and pickup cards. So the events and the pickups all go into this deck plus half of the backpack and weapons cards, and they all get... So you shuffle up the backpack and weapons cards, take out 12, shuffle them in with these, and then everything that's left goes over there in the supply deck, and that gets used later. You randomly pull a zombie out, and that becomes your enemy there. You don't use these horde things during a single player game. You just use their passive ability, so when a player is eaten alive, 2 zombies are immediately added to that store. Then you randomly pull your 2 players, and then you set them up with a heal token up here on 0, and you have 9 wounds. And then basically what happens is these 2 cannot cross, or you're eaten alive and you basically die. Then the last thing you do, or the other thing that you need to do, is you pull 3 random objective cards, and then you set up based on what they are. So in this case, you have to put the radio into the courtyard, and someone drives that around, and pickup items are radio frequencies. I'm not sure how you pick that up. I guess you pick it up on your radio. And you've got to get 3 of those, and you move these across like that. This one is you've got to save the stranded little girl and hope you don't pull the zombie because he jumps out and wounds you. And then escape them all. You have to check all the exits. Basically you have to go to every exit, and then both of you get in one room. But that is really the extent of the setup. And then you just have your tokens here. I'll put them out for the little girl and the zombie and the exits here in a minute. You have your extra zombies. If you ever run out of zombies, then you basically start losing your barricade and you die because there's so many of them. Your little weapons, and then extra for more people games. And then that's about everything. And then you have your die here close at hand, and that's basically the setup. Okay, so I have the game all set up and ready to go. One thing I did forget to mention is that you have to make sure when you set these cards up, even if it makes them look funny, the door is to the outside. So first thing you do is, in a one-player game, you just randomly select out of the search pile and put them in front of each player. In the multiplayer game, when you have someone playing the zombie, they get to actually decide what goes in the search pile. But in this case, it's random. You go there. Now, each turn consists of 3 moves. You have to move 3 times, then the zombie goes, then the other player goes 3 times, and then the zombie goes. After you move, then if there's a zombie in the room, you kill the zombie, or you can shoot the zombie if you're one room away and have a pistol like these folks do. And then once the zombie's dead, you can then interact with the room either with tokens, or some rooms have special abilities, or you can pick up supplies and come back and build your barricade bigger, that sort of thing. So as you do that, what you want to avoid is increasing numbers of zombies, which I'll just show you in a second. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we were right here at this point. Move into this room. I can kill a zombie by using 1 bullet to shoot the zombie, or I can do it in melee. Remembering that I don't want to use up all my bullets and have the health go up at the same time, so I'm just going to wait and do melee. So let's just say it's the next move. So I move 1, I shoot the zombie. You have different dice, or different things on the dice here. So the green means you get to move 1 more space afterwards immediately, but you can't interact with the room. Blue is nothing extra. That is, you still kill the zombie, but you take 2 wounds, and on the other side is you kill the zombie and take 1 wound. So let's just say we roll. Oh, so I took 2 wounds. 1, 2. Still kill the zombie. And then I can interact and check with the girl. Okay, is it up? It is the little girl. So immediately move over 1. We finished that part. So you can just see on the card here. So we're going to move over to here and then put the zombie and the girl randomly in these 2 symboled rooms. And that's just, part of the objective. I'll do that. Then you can interact and flip the door, and that just goes over on that one. The only thing I don't see in the instructions, and I'm going to have to go look, is whether you can interact with 2 or not. And I'll put a little thing up here. I don't know if you can do 2 tokens, 2 interactions, or just 1. Because it says and or, you can clearly do a token and then do whatever is in the room, because it does use the and. I just don't know if you could do multiples. Okay, so done our interactions. Then what happens is you do the search. Okay. Alright, so this time there is a Uzi in there. So the Uzi just goes by the room. You can't pick it up that same turn. But any other time when someone ends a turn in that store, they can pick up the Uzi if there are no zombies around. Now, so that's the end of the human turn. So now what happens is the zombie turn. So you can see right up here there's this little symbol. So if they're not in that room, so this is a purple symbol, this is a green symbol, so not in the room, so you just put one zombie in the 2 rooms that have that green symbol, which are this one over here. And the way you place the zombies are, there's section room 1, 2, and 3 in each store. You have to do it in order. So this one, there's one in room 1, so you go to room 2. The other green one is right here. There's one in room 1, so you put it into room 2. And that's important near the end. And then that is the end of the zombie turn in the 1-player game. And then you replace this card here for the next search. I would have this down a little more, but because of space on the camera, I didn't. Other than that, that is really all there is to the zombie turn. And then you move on to the next player. If the card drawn there had been a purple symbol, then you would have put 2 in each room. And the way the zombies work over time, so as you're going along, if you fill room 2 here, room 3 here, if you get one more, then what happens is they come into here and they tear down one of the barricades. So a couple of other little bits and then how you win or lose. So if the zombies do end up in here, like this, the barricade goes down. When the barricade goes down to 0, you lose one of these guys. That's one way you lose them. The other way you lose these guys is if your things touch here, you're considered dead, and then you basically lose your person here. You draw a new random player and you take away one of these and start fresh. So the 2 ways these can go. Now the zombies win if you lose these guys and somebody, one more person comes to this level here, gets bled out and dies. You've got nobody to replace them, so now the zombies win. The other way the zombies can win is if you run out of these search cards and you haven't completed your objectives, then the zombies win. You get one more round, and if you haven't done it, the zombies win. The humans only win if the 3 cards get completed. So pretty simple there. I guess the other way you could do is if the barricade is down to 0 and you have no more, if the barricade comes down to 0 a 3rd time when those guys are gone, that would be a loss as well. So you have to manage your wounds, and you have to manage where the zombies are going so that you go and kill them, so that they can't get into this center courtyard, and at the same time manage all of your different objectives. And that's really it in a nutshell. Move, fight a zombie, interact with the room 3 times, flip over the card goes in the room, somebody else can come later to pick up the cards, and then the zombies do what is checking for noise, but basically zombie turn starts, you look at that, you put zombies in the rooms with that, either 1 or 2 based on whether you're in the room or not. then it's the next player's turn, and then they flip theirs, and on until these are all gone, your barricades and your people are gone, or you've just died. So that is really the game in a nutshell. It takes about 30 minutes. I've played it 3 or 4 times. About 30 minutes. So that's it in a nutshell. I will be back with some thoughts and concluding comments in a minute. Okay, so review and discussion. Tiny Epic Zombies. Thematically, I mean, I think it does okay at the theme. It's not as tense as, you know, some of the zombie sides, but it's not silly like The Walking Dead. But it gets that feel, and there is a sense of urgency because those cards are going to end, and you're going through the cards, and then the zombies start picking up the pace, and you think your barricade's going to go. The biggest tense moment or tension building mechanism is that health and the ammo getting closer and closer, and it's like, oh well, I better run back to somewhere where I can heal, or let me go somewhere where I can push the ammo up. So that does give you a sense of urgency, which you need, and that's what these games are really all about. The components are all actually really nice. The artwork is, you know, it's good, it's funny, it's somewhere between horror and comic book horror. So good for kids, not so much that you don't want your kids to play with it, but you know, not so silly that you don't want to play with it. Does it hit the small RV game level? Yeah, this is about, forget what it was, you know, it's 1.5 inches thick by 7 inches by I think 5 inches, something like that. But when you lay it all out, it still takes up about 2.5 by 1.5 feet of table space. Now in the RV, that's about the perfect size for the RV table. And then this goes into a little compartment pretty easy. So it does meet these small. Tiny, yes. Epic, it's nice, it's good, it's fun. And that's the main thing. Is it fun? Yeah, it's a pretty fun game. It'd be a great entry game for younger gamers. It's not scary. It's all the little meeples and peoples. And then speaking of the meeples, so the plastic meeples with the little components, they're nice. You know, it's kind of cool to have your little meeple carry around a chainsaw, but it's gimmicky. I actually found myself most of the time not bothering with this piece because I can look on the table and see the card and be just fine. But it is kind of neat and it's kind of fun, and they have a Kickstarter going for one with mechs, and I guess you can put your meeples in mech suits or something. But overall, it's a fun game. It is not difficult. It is strategically middle of the road. It doesn't take a lot of strategic thought. You got to decide where you're going to go, how you're going to get there. Do I shoot the zombie? Do I use a bullet, or do I chance fighting? So, I mean, there is strategic decision making in there. It is not high level strategic decision making. It's pretty clear exactly what you have to do because you have 3 different things that you have to accomplish in order to win. But you have to do it in a very short time frame. And the card sequence also makes the game shorter. So from that aspect, I really do like it. As I said, the rules are easy. The rule book is very clear. It's a little small print, but it's very clear. The components were all done well, and I think it hits the mark for what it's trying to do. Now on the scale of table, meaning I want it on my table all the time, versus shelf, I'll pull it down a couple times a month, or you know, I want it handy versus the closet. Oh, you know, every 2, 3, 4 months I'll pull it out and play it. Versus trade it or trash it. I think this is probably in the closet. When I'm sitting around the house, I'm going to probably put something bigger on my game table, but when I travel, great option. Will definitely go in the RV with me. It can go in a suitcase or a backpack if you travel by train. You could probably pull this out in an airport if you have a long layover. Tiny Epic Zombies, good game. I think it's worth the 20 bucks that you pay for it. If you can get it cheaper than that, yeah, you know, even better. So, with all that said, It's an in-the-closet game, but it's fun. Good crossover starting game for younger players, and it hits the theme pretty well. The gameplay is pretty good. There's some strategy, so it's a really game I like to have in my closet, so worth checking out. Alright, so until next time, I think I'll check out some more of these tiny epic games and see how they all play, but until then, happy gaming.